Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Success is Complicated podcast. I am your host, RaQuel, and you can follow us at Success is Complicated on Instagram.
And I'm your co-host, Cieara Davis.
All right, so we're back, season 2, episode 2 for us, and today we are going to talk about healing. We hear that term a lot today. In my opinion, it's a pop culture term that's being used and in a lot of ways misused. And that's my opinion, and I'll explain it a little bit more. But I want to kind of start off with this past week because I called Cieara this week and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling a lot of gratitude. And then on one hand, I've been feeling a little sad. Didn't really know why I was feeling sad, but overall, a great deal of gratitude. And if you follow me on Instagram, you saw that I shared my story about just like the ups and downs of life and what it means to be human. And I talked about losing my mom to an overdose. And it's been over 20 something years. I think I was 11 years old when I lost her. But I called Cieara this week and I was like, I get it. And I got very emotional when I said that I get it because I've spent a big part of my life or my journey trying to heal. And what that translates to, or at least what I hear when I'm talking to other people from a coaching or therapy perspective, is we try to figure out how to beat life. How do we crack the code to life so that we don't have to experience certain pains and adversities? And when I called her and said that I get it, what I meant was I get that my mom was human. You know, as children, we see them as like our parents. And C had said, you start to realize that they're just like C and RaQuel or and Nene and Greg and Vivica. And I get it part was me finally giving myself permission to like let go in another area of my life. And when I think about like spending this journey healing, which is why I don't necessarily believe in the word, because it's in some aspects I feel like it says that we're broken. There's something that needs to be fixed. And you realize that it's just about human, and you can't heal yourself from being human. And I think a lot of people, when I talk to so many people, and even with my own experiences, I've been trying to heal myself from being human. Like, let me unlearn this. Let me heal so that my children don't have to heal. But the truth be told is, like, life is always going to life. You can't escape pain, adversities, uncertainties, change. And so that's what that's what I was thinking about in terms of healing. I'm still processing it to today because there's a piece of me that has thought about like how much time I have spent being judgmental of like my own mom in a lot of ways. And then when I became an adult, I was like, woo, this shit is like it's real. And you realize that I did a post on Instagram and I remember people used to say stay in a child's place. And I never really got it because I'm like, well, somebody needs to be the adult, right? And now, even as an adult, sometimes like, I wish somebody would say stay in a child's place because adulthood does not offer a framework or a roadmap in terms of how you do life. One of the things that I really appreciate about being a parent is that when you go to the doctors, you have all of these developmental milestones and these maps to tell you some of the things that you should be doing and what you should be looking for from your kids. And you don't get that in adulthood. It's like, you know, you're on your own and you figure it out. And I realized that that's the same thing that I have in common with my mom. So that's kind of like what the week started. And I called C and I was like, how do you feel about talking about healing? And she's like, it's cool. And then she hung up, but she was busy with her family and her husband and them. And then she called me back. But that's what we're going to talk about this week. So I'll turn it over to you, C, to kind of share your thoughts.
So when you called me, it was definitely a full circle moment, right? Because I have, watched you all these years and
You're gonna make this emotional. You're gonna make this emotional, huh?
Find your way. And I'm not going to make this emotional because I'm going to turn the tables, right? Of how I have been able to, I guess, one, look at our parents and the way that they do things, the way that they have done things. Me as a mother, the way that I've done things, and um, I remember being a kid and ultimately saying, thinking that my parents were superheroes, like they could change the world, they could do great things, and I have some amazing parents, y'all. So let's just keep that in there. But one day I realized that what you were saying is that they're just V and G.
You
Like
got that before I got it, because I
they
certainly.
and that helped me in I guess in my walk as a parent, right? Realizing that as much as I want to be Dominique's superhero or Hakeem's superhero, that I am Cieara. I'm human. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm not always gonna get it right. But guess what? I'm still doing my best. And my best is, what I offered that day
Or in that moment.
or in that moment, because we decide, who we are at each moment.
Yep. Each moment gives us, each moment describes who we are and gives us an opportunity to decide if that's who we want to be. So I get that. It's just, and just thinking about healing, because I hear a lot of people say that I'm still on this healing journey, and a lot of those people that I'm working with, and I believe I've done away with the word a long time ago, but just really talking about when we say, or when we hear people say, what does it mean to heal? And I've processed it this week and thought about it, like, even though I just don't believe in the word healing, because I believe when you go to therapy, is you don't go to therapy to heal. You go to therapy to fill in developmental gaps, skills that you may have not necessarily had, or to have a person to talk to that can be objective in terms of listening to your thoughts and your feelings. But that's never what it was intended to do, to heal people, because at the very core, if you come to me, see, and you say, like, I want to be healed, like, it's what I'm receiving from that, like my perspective, like something is wrong with C. We need to try to fix it. And what ends up happening is culture has gotten so obsessed with healing that at some point you never really pause and be like, okay, I'm here. This is how far I've come. Accepting your life experiences, like, they're, despite how bad, how good you may think it has been, there's a level of radical acceptance that has to come with life, because life is just going to continue to offer. I see you. Go ahead, just jump in. This our
Well,
podcast.
I think that when people say healing, I think that there's a lot of blame rooted in the word healing, meaning someone has did something to me, something has happened to me that I need to,
Or I have done
or
something.
I have done something to someone, or just whatever. I really feel like the root of the word healing is blame.
Mm.
And when we move away from blame and into responsibility, do we truly have to heal, or are we in a space to accountability, right? How do I want to show up? How do I want things to look?
So it's Black History Month, because you make a good point, right? And I was thinking about just our culture in general, right? When you think of, I don't want to go too deep into it, but most people would say that we need to heal. And even when we try to heal, like, these reoccurring events continue to happen. Is it possible? And this came from a client that I was coaching this week. I'm telling you, like, life was presenting some opportunities, and it was a Black woman. She's done very well for herself, and somehow we had got on the topic of worthiness. And I asked her, I said, do you ever think as a Black woman that you would feel worthy? And I said, all I want is a yes or no. And she was not able to give a yes or no. So when race comes into play, is healing the right word for us?
You know what? You make a very interesting point, RaQuel, because I kind of had this conversation, right? And I think wh- when systematic oppression is in play, I think that there is a lot to be said about that, right? However, how do we show up today with the opportunities that we have today? That does not take away from our ancestors, the things that they built, or the work that they put in to get us to where we are today. But how do we show up in all of that privilege? Because when we negate that, it's blame.
What do you mean when you say we negate that? That's blame.
I think because
Oh, I think I get it.
you said it's okay.
I get it. When you say that we negate it, it's blame. It's recognizing the work that has come before us.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily saying that we have to heal from what they've experienced, but kind of taking that torch and continuing to move the bar forward. Because truth, I mean, I'm happy to be Black. I don't want to be no other color. I love being Black. And when you really think about it, like, you can't change it. It's one of the things that you can't change it. And if your healing or your worthiness is rooted in race, like, of course you're always going to see something wrong with you. And I'll be honest, like, I have an interesting clientele, and I usually only hear the word heal, and, like, I'm not going to say worthiness because we all deal with worthiness in different ways, but healing usually comes from us. And somehow it's this foundation that we're broken. We need to be fixed, and we're looking for somebody to, I always say, to show us how to cheat life.
Well, RaQuel, the first time I found myself on the healing journey, right, was probably supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life. I was in Thailand, I was living it up, but I felt like I needed to heal because I felt like someone had done something to me.
In Thailand?
Yes, girl.
You never told me about that.
I was falling all to pieces in Thailand. Every time I went back to that room, I was falling out.
What did you feel like you needed to heal from?
Because marriage had hit me in a whole different way. Meaning, I had seen the ups and downs that my parents had went through, and I had claimed myself different. Meaning, we ain't gonna do this because we gonna do it like this. We are going to.
Y'all were positioned well from a financial standpoint, so you had an opportunity to do stuff differently.
Right. But also from I guess a level standpoint, right? Like we're both on the same playing field. We both love each other very much. No one could tell me like that my husband don't love me. But I was still feeling like I needed to heal because I felt like he had done something to me.
That's interesting because I feel like I've went on like growth journeys, but never a healing journey. And it's still probably the same thing because it's a lot of judgment. And mine has been like, y'all didn't know what y'all were doing. I'm going to make sure that I figure it out type of thing.
Right.
So that I never have to feel this way or experience this, or my kids don't have to feel or experience this. And I mean, I still ended up experiencing everything and some more.
Right.
So I almost wish that we can take, because just going back from a therapy standpoint, you don't go to therapy to heal. And I'll be honest, if someone tells you that you're coming to therapy to heal, I would run because it says that you see something wrong with me. You see something wrong with my experiences. You see something wrong with my humanness. You see that I could be possibly broken and I need to be put back together. And it's hard to come out of that cycle.
Right. And when I say I do think it's hard to come out of that cycle of feeling like something is wrong with you, or but I still have this aching feeling that it's in blame and like that something is happening to you. Not necessarily that you're a bad person or that someone has, or that you're not whole, but I think it is feeling like you want to do it better. Feel like you need to do
It's
it
the
better.
ego. The
Like, I
ego is
don't
still
want
very much
to
so loud.
go through pain like this again. So
Right.
if I don't want to go through pain like this again, how do I protect myself?
Right. So if the focus isn't necessarily on healing, right? Because I tell you what's coming to my mind right now is thinking about how we develop as adults, right?
Okay.
And I absolutely love this topic because when I started that mental health program, I don't know, God just said I'm going to pull you in a different direction, and I started going outside of like the book work and like, is there anything for adults? Because I'm tired of talking about feelings. Like I understand and have an appreciation for being able to acknowledge and talk about your feelings, but they're not facts. Like adulthood is complex. Like we need some support. Like what does that look like? And I started exploring like other modalities and just ways of working with people. And one of the things that came to my one of the things that I ended up coming across was this model called Keegan's development. And I've talked to her about it several times. But I thought about, so it's like four different stages. And I think about like therapy and this whole concept of healing. And it's called you start with the impulsive mind, and then it's the imperial mind, right? And the imperial mind is you have the awareness that there are other people around you, right?
Right.
But the only thing that really matters is like your needs and your wants. And science or the theory says that that's where adolescents live, 18 to 24 years or so. And it says that 6% of the population is there. 6% of adult population falls there. And I like to argue that and say that the population is probably a lot more higher, because that's all you hear now is it's about me. What's in it for me? If this doesn't work in a relationship, then I'm gone because I have to protect myself, or I'm on this healing journey. And you don't realize that in order to develop, because this is not about healing, we're talking about developing yourself cognitively, physically, spiritually. Adults have to develop in that sense. A lot of this pop culture doesn't offer the opportunity for that because everybody's talking about the same thing. Everybody's talking about the same thing. And when I saw that, like that, because I was even thinking about, okay, what's in it for me? Like at times, when have I thought like that, but really doing adult shit? Because you can't be married with an imperial mindset. That's one of the things. Like if it's always about you, or when you feel like your needs aren't being met, child.
Well, I think with an imperial mindset, like, are is there only 6% of adults there, like you were saying?
No, I think
right?
it's way more.
Or is it truly when people are healing, right? And whether it's rooted in blame or unworthiness,
That's the focus.
either or, right? Is it truly about them, right? Because most of the time what I hear is people want to heal for generations. They want to heal so that their children don't have to experience those same things. They want to heal so that way they don't show up the same way their parents did to them.
Right.
Or their children don't do that to their children.
So here's the thing about the imperial mindset, because the other thing is people don't necessarily do what they do for the benefits. They do it for the reward.
Explain that a little bit more.
There's a difference between rewards and benefits, right? It's just like, if you're following the traffic laws, right? You don't necessarily see the benefit, and the reward is kind of rooted in your ego. I don't have any tickets, or as my dad would say, I got a clean driving record. Like, not necessarily for the benefit of It's keeping other people safety. I mean, or keeping people safe. I'm saving the lives of other people, whatever it may be. So when you say that healing is rooted in blame, it makes a lot of sense because to me, the mindset is still there, very much so adolescent mindset, because benefit versus reward. Now, people are going to say, no, it is a benefit because my kids. No, you're choosing for your children, number one. The reward is I'm a good parent. I was a good parent. I was better than my parents. I did more and I gave more. And what ends up happening is, as you continue to evolve or adulthood continues to offer you more, your kids maybe, I didn't ask you for that. Just like that girl, you seen that video when that girl was like, I asked for a BMW, not a Tesla. And what ends up happening, you said, what's in it for me? Because as parents, spouses, however you want to look at it, and employees, employers, we want to feel good about what we're doing, what we're putting out. But a lot of it is still very ego driven. And that is what ends up happening in like therapy or in these spaces where we're talking about healing. Like, some people actually even come into these spaces and end up like declining in terms of like their cognitive development too, because you go back to focusing on your needs. Because if the other person's mindset is there as well, like they can end up taking you back as well. So I don't know if I explained that well in terms of rewards versus the benefits. The rewards are like, they're short term. They may make you feel good in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the other person felt like you gave them exactly what they needed, which is why I say, when I was saying earlier, like as a woman, as a mom, like I get it, like I understand my mom like more and her just what it means to be human. I realized that I cannot save my children from everything. Like, while I think that I'm doing the best, that's why I don't really trip about parenthood anymore at this point, because you have these little beings that will form and have their own perspectives. Granted, I play a role in like shaping those experiences and those perspectives, but they'll grow up, have their own friends, build their own community, and may say, you gave me too much. Like, I've actually heard people say that in therapy too. Like, my parents did too much. They didn't leave space for me to do this. I've even heard somebody say that I grew up in a household with both parents being therapists, and all we talked about were feelings. Like, and I absolutely hated it. So it kind of puts into perspective that, one, like I guess the control that we think that we do have is all an illusion to some degree. To some degree. I mean, you got to do what feels right here. But I do think I think that number is way off. I think it's way off. There's a long pole. Why you look like that? I mean, I do. I don't know what 6% of the population. I'm assuming that's still probably millions.
Well, I'm assuming that there's another layer to these four modalities.
It is another layer.
Yeah.
It isn't. You want me to talk about the next I guess mindset? It's perfect actually, because the next level is a socialized mindset, and it says 56% of the population. So rather than that prior stage, and let me just say this, because from adulthood, you do the vertical growth, but there's nothing wrong with horizontal growth as well. So I don't want people to walk away and feeling like RaQuel is saying that you have to develop this way, because growth and development it's not linear. But the next level is the socialized mindset, and the question there is, what will people think of me? Same thing. What will your kids think about you? What will your employer think about you? What will your spouse think about you? And what's interesting here is we start to give credit to people that have titles behind their name, or that they can prove that they've had success. And no longer think for yourself. And all of us fall into it, right? Go to college, get married, have kids. That's sort of like that socialized mindset. So I feel like the theory and even science acknowledges that we don't have to place blame on anybody, because that's a part of like being human too. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, society says this, society says it's not about society. It's a part of being on this earth. So when you talk about like socialize, jumping on the word healing is a part of the socialized mindset, because if I'm not healing, what would that next partner think of me? Like, or if I'm not healing, what will my children think about me? And then what ends up happening is we still fight with our self-concept coupled with our self-esteem. So, I can ramble on about this because, I absolutely love talking about it. And I just feel like it's not talked about enough. And it's great to have a framework. It's great to have a roadmap. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to follow those things through to the T. But when you can't compare adulthood and childhood. Granted, I know that there's some people that have really experienced some very traumatic things in childhood. But by the time you get to adulthood and you start adding all of these other layers, all of these identities and these roles, it becomes even more complex. I would say adolescent is a rough time for a lot of children, right? And then, going from adolescent into adulthood, it's like, woo, like you got to start paying bills. Like, it's just different. It's just different. All of it ends up being a shock as you go through these transitions in life.
Okay, so
Did we get off the topic healing?
we did.
Bring us back.
So I guess when I hear the word healing a lot of times, again, I think it's rooted in blame, or you trying to fix something, or in all of those things. If people aren't healing, or if healing isn't the goal, then what is?
That's a good question. So I definitely don't think that it's healing. I think that if it is to lean in and embrace every aspect of life. Lean in and embrace every aspect of life, because people always say everything happens for a reason and there's a lesson in every mistake, or and if you're focused on healing, there's usually some conflict there, because, and then I know people will say, well, two things can be true. Nah, okay, whatever. And I'm not gonna go into that. I understand what people are saying when they say two things can be true, but I think it's really about leaning in to what life has to offer. Like, I'm gonna lean in no matter how bad, how rough, how hard, how good, like it gets. It's I want to lean in. Like, if what I would love to see is people coming into therapy or talking about therapy and talking about, I'm here because I want to lean into life. Like, I don't want to run from life. I don't want to protect my peace. I want to be able to absorb all that life is offering me, because I'm resilient. I have the ability to bounce back. It makes me think of, because I'm going back to this Black culture, Black History Month thing. It makes me think about, and just thinking about just like our culture. It says this, there's this psychologist, his name is Dr. Joseph White, and he has these 7 strengths of Blacks. And the ability to be resilient, the ability to improvise, the ability to show up in your humor. And I don't remember all of them, but I do remember one of them is, a healthy suspicion of white folks. Like, he says that in the 7 strengths, but leaning in because you recognize like the strength that is within you. What you laughing at?
A healthy suspicion of white folks.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, but you know what that tells me is you don't have to necessarily get stuck there. I don't have to hate. I don't have to place blame there based off of history. Maybe I haven't necessarily moved on. So I have a healthy suspicion of these people, but it doesn't mean that it's going to prevent me from sitting at certain tables. It doesn't mean that it's going to prevent me from like being in a room full of white people. Nothing's wrong with a healthy suspicion. I have healthy suspicions of a lot because I'm just scary by nature. But yeah, I mean, we just saw that right before we walked in here. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? Does that answer the question?
I think it does. I think it does. I mean, what I hear you saying is that the goal for us is really to be able to do life, like not necessarily get stuck or sidetracked, but the ability to do life despite what shows up.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's about. I think we just need to get rid of the word healing. Like,
I guess, why do you think that people are even trying to heal?
because they think they're broke. I think it's different for different people. It's like, so for what I've seen, fundamentally people I see something wrong. I need to be fixed. And then the other side of it is like I want to be prepared for whatever life offers too, or whatever happens in life. And that ain't gonna work either. Like to prepare, because the only thing that life offers is uncertainty.
Right.
So
So we know that you can't be fixed. And we also know that there's no way to be prepared. Like, nobody knows what tomorrow may hold. Nobody knows what the next minute may hold. So the goal is to actually do life.
yeah, and I was just thinking about one of the things that just crossed my mind was just thinking about adults, right? And this whole idea of skills. And we started talking about this on the way here, but skills versus or information, like what it really looks like to update your mind. And that's what this podcast is about in these conversations. Some of it is us sharing our experiences, but really challenging you to start thinking outside of the box, start thinking outside of what culture is offering, what pop culture is offering, because on the other side of that is so many other possibilities. And I know that sounds cliche, like, oh, there's so many other possibilities, but you have to be able to stay curious about life. Being really curious about life, because what ends up happening, I did a post the other day because I'm guilty of it. I said signs when you know that you're taking yourself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a joke. I said, like, you know, when you hear people say, well, based on my experience, it's based off of past information.
Right.
And what ends up happening in that moment is you don't hear the new information that's being presented. Adults don't necessarily, and that's the thing, when you start talking about adult development, it's not about the skills that you have anymore. Skills don't necessarily add anything to us in adulthood. Maybe your ego, but when you start to talk about how you develop, it's the curiosity. It's being able to think out the box. It means that even though I've had this experience in the past, I can listen to exactly what Cieara is saying in this moment and not feel like I have to rely on anything from the past. Almost like what children do, like they're sponges. They can soak in anything. The other one was, because I did it last week, was when you signs when you're taking yourself too seriously. What did I do? Oh, I felt like I felt like I needed to let somebody know. First of all, I hold these titles and these letters. And I felt so dumb after. I didn't feel dumb, but I felt dumb because we were able to connect just based off of who I was. But the healing part of me, right? If we were to talk about healing, how I felt in the moment, like me acknowledging my needs and being in certain spaces will let me tell you. So I think it's like really leaning. It is really about leaning in. You were saying something in the car. I kind of want to shift it.
Well, I guess what I was saying was, you know, a lot of people talk about tools, and I was watching our last episode.
Okay.
And what I saw you saying was like changing the shape of the way that you see things. And so what that reminded me of is a paradigm shift. When you have gotten new information that overrides all information that you previously had on a subject or a topic, which creates a total change in direction or how you show up to anything regarding a certain situation. And while I think a paradigm shift is is best. I would definitely say a paradigm shift is best. But what do we do until we get to a paradigm shift, right? Because
Tune into Success is Complicated
all
podcast.
information is just not compelling enough.
That's true.
To shift immediately.
I think that what do we do? Recognizing that we have biases, right?
Right.
I got a bias at this point, and my bias is do not talk to me about feelings. Do not try to talk to my inner child whatsoever because I'm not a child. Like, that's a bias for me. And I know that I could end up shutting off information, but recognizing that we all have biases. Like, when you go onto Google and it's almost like Google knows exactly who you are.
Right.
I mean, it's a bias because we attract like what we are or what we're experiencing. So being open to different information, and if I'm being honest, this whole adult development came because I was just open. Even though I like understood like what they were saying, I was still like curious. So it's what was the first thing I just said? I forgot. What was the first thing I just said?
You were saying to be open.
Oh no, recognizing that we have biases.
Oh yeah.
And then I would say the second thing is just really challenging yourself to be curious, because I read a lot. Sometimes I need to just put a book down. Just being honest, but because I have not decided to accept what society says about like healing and this whole mental health thing, I need to put books down. But I've even landed across, like, for a long time, like, I understand this whole nature versus nurture thing, and we are all over the place on this, but it's okay though, because I landed across, like, they say it, that science says that your thought process has the ability to alter, like, your genetics or, like, your DNA. Mind blowing to me, because I'll be honest, depending on if I was in that space of healing, you couldn't have told me that that was true. You could have never told me that was true. But remembering that the mental health industry is still a business, right? Like, and I'm not saying that the industry doesn't want anybody to heal, because there are great people that are doing great work out there, but it really is a business. And when you start talking about transformation, I'm not talking about like your thought process or how you think from a CBT perspective. I'm talking about like who you are as a person. Who you are as a person.
Well, I think that on this journey of healing, for whoever is healing, most of the time that is what they're doing. They're seeking out more information to grow their perspective, so that way they have the keys and the code to.
I would disagree with that.
Really?
I would. The only reason I
mean, you're the one with the clients, so
no, I don't. Only reason I don't think that they're seeking more information. They're asking for a why. Like, why did this happen to me? Most because we want to be able to make sense out of our experiences and how we view and see the world. It's almost like it's validation to some. I don't know that people are. I think it goes back to what you were saying about the blame aspect of it. I need someone to validate me in terms of the direction that I'm actually going in. I need that validation. I need someone to tell me that this is the right direction that I'm going in, and who I was before was based off of somebody else. I just don't like the word healing. I just think we need a new word. I don't like the word. I just don't like the word healing.
So if you don't like the word healing, what is the word?
Why can't it just be growth? Like, I'm looking to grow, to evolve, and growing and evolving is about responsibility. It's not rooted in blame. Like it's just not.
Right. I definitely agree. I definitely think that the road to healing is growth. If you want to heal, grow.
If you want to heal, I get it though. And the other thing, I let me just acknowledge, because I hear what you're saying. There are some people that truly feel like they really do need to heal. So I understand when people, I'm not saying that I don't understand when people use that word, because I get it. I really do. What I'm more interested in is how you think about what healing is or what it means.
Right. And I guess what you never really get to the root of is what people really mean when they say heal. And I think that it's definitely not a one size fit all. Like, because we're here today. I think is blame. She think is, not enough. And I think for other people, it may be some other stuff, right? The code, right. They want the ABCs. So
they want a roadmap. Tell me how to do this. This is how I should make the next move.
When
I mean, at the end of the day, I said it, you can't heal yourself from being human. Like, you just can't. You cannot heal yourself from being human. And you can try to, you can go on that journey, and it is going to be a ride.
Right.
It's going to be a ride.
But for whoever is on a journey of healing, you're right where you're supposed to be. And if you're listening to our episode, you're definitely right where you're supposed to be, because you would know that outside of what needs to come out of that healing is growth. And that's the ability to do life no matter what happens. Things are going to knock us down. We're going to go through some tough shit. Ooh, and was I supposed to curse?
You can curse.
We're going to go through some tough things at times. But on the other side of it, are you able to grow? Are you able to continue to do life? And you'll know if you're actually healing or growing, because life will continue to give you the same things if you're not.
True that. Well, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap it up here.
I wasn't trying to wrap it up.
I think that because we don't know who's listening, right? And we're not trying to eradicate the word healing and say like you shouldn't use it. We're just offering a different perspective in terms of like your healing journey could be rooted in blame and not taking full responsibility for like you today. And the other side of that is it could also be you trying to look for a code in terms of how to beat life, and you can't heal yourself from being human. So it's
get intentional about your healing. Get intentional.
Okay. So on that note, thank you so much for listening to us. I hope that in some ways you find this encouraging. If not, we're always open to feedback. If there are other topics that you would like for us to speak on, let us know. This is our second season. We did do a first season, but we went on a hiatus for a while, but
we're back.
A lot of great episodes. Yep, we're back. But follow me at Success is Complicated. It's no underscore, all lowercase, Success, SUCCESSISCOMPL. You can see it right here on the shirt. We got it here, right? All right, you got this. Can you zoom in here? Success is Complicated. It really is it's a brand, it's a lifestyle, and it's really about just leaning into to being human, recognizing that we're all trying to figure this thing out, and we want to grow, we want to evolve. So that's what we're here to do. So follow us, and until next time.